Chapter 4279. At the same time, in the Chilan Mountain, with the activation of the formation around the whole mountain glowed. Rays of light swept across the ground, forming an ancient formation visible to the naked eye. Seeing the ancient ceiling formation appear, Du Fan's eyes lit up. Only Master had the ability to break such a formation. If it were him, he might not be able to do it. With the activation of the formation, they stood in several positions and gathered their spiritual power to help Fengjiu. The spiritual power flowed along the formation in circles. When the light was completely covered, the spiritual power converged at the center of the formation. With a loud bang, the formation broke, and a powerful airflow surged from the ground and burst into the surroundings. Bang!
Boom!
With a loud bang, a beam of light shot up into the sky and disappeared into the clouds. In an instant, the whole sky was filled with a loud rumbling sound. It was as if thunder was swinging between the clouds, but also as if something had exploded. A powerful aura of pressure surged and spread out in the sky. The whole world fell into darkness in an instant, and there was no light at all. Du Fan and the others soared into the sky the moment the formation was broken. They leaped off the ground and spread out in all directions. Raising their heads to look at the pitch-black sky, a look of astonishment flashed across their eyes. They could clearly feel the airflow of energy, but why was there such an airflow in the sky? Moreover, why did the world fall into darkness in an instant? Could it be? An idea came to their minds, and they faintly guessed. However, at this time, the whole mountain below was trembling slightly. In the darkness, their master's voice came.
Quick!
Get out of the way. Retreat to the distance. Fengjiu's cold voice came into their ears. Even in the darkness, they could see the scene below. It seemed that the ground was loosening, and steam was rising. At the top of the mountain, the soil began to roll out. Du Fan, Lung Shuang, and Wang Yu quickly retreated. Yi Feifei, standing on the back of the purple eagle, also retreated to the distance, vigilantly watching the mountain below that began to surge. Bang, bang, bang. On the top of the mountain, large stones rolled down from high above, smashing into a cloud of dust. The heat and airflow collided with each other and surged upward. Fengjiu looked at the soil of the mountain, which seemed to be scalded by something extremely hot, gradually turning red in the darkness. At the top of the mountain, with a bang, the heat rushed upward, revealing a huge bottomless black hole. Hot air surged up from the black hole. Suddenly, a wave of boiling red magma emerged from the Earth's core with a rumble along with the flames. It surged out from the mouth of the mountain. Rolling magma poured down from the top of the mountain and quickly splashed down. It covered the bottom of the mountain and swallowed all the sand and stones on the ground. Suddenly, the whole place became as bright as day, as the magma and flames. A roar filled with an ancient power, and a roar came out of the magma cave. Roar! Chapter 4280. Looking at the majestic golden Chilan, Fengjiu's eyes lit up. This was an adult ancient Chilan beast. Its aura was powerful and intimidating. It soared into the sky from the magma and roared in midair, its voice echoing throughout the entire sky. Following the fire Chilan's emergence, the dark clouds in the sky also dispersed. However, it was not the usual hot day, but a quiet starry sky with twinkling stars. Looking at the starry sky, the people in this area could not help but widen their eyes in shock. Their faces were filled with disbelief. This is the starry sky? This is the night. This is the starry sky. Heavens! In my lifetime, I can actually see the appearance of the starry sky. I can see the sun and moon. The starry sky is actually like this. The cool night breeze has blown away the heat of the day. The stars in the sky are twinkling like pairs of pure eyes. The bright moon is so gentle, so bright and beautiful. In midair above Chilan Mountain, the fire Chilan's sharp and imposing gaze swept across the area and landed on the red-robed Fengjiu. You're the one who woke me up? Fengjiu looked at the fire Chilan and said directly, I want you to become my son's contracted beast. Impossible. The fire Qielin's imposing and deep voice was heard. Its 4 hooves stepped on flames, and its body burned with flames. Its entire body emitted a majestic battle intent and intimidating aura. I am an ancient divine beast. I will never become a contracted beast of a human again. It stared at Fengjiu with its sharp eyes and said, "Since you broke the formation and woke me up, I won't argue with you for your impudence." As soon as it finished speaking, it leaped up and prepared to leave. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and said arrogantly and confidently, "Since I can break the formation and let you out, I can also seal you back into this magma. Whether you submit or not, in the end, you can't escape the fate of becoming my son's contracted beast." Impudent. The fire Qilin was enraged. It opened its mouth and spat out a ball of flames towards Fengjiu. However, it did not expect Fengjiu to wave his sleeves and leap into the air. Instead of dodging or escaping, he charged towards the fire Qilin.
"I should be the one saying that,"
Fengjiu said. At the same time, he released his ancient divine aura and gathered spiritual energy in his palms and struck out with flames. Ancient fire phoenix? The fire Qilin was stunned as it felt a familiar ancient divine aura from her body. It immediately turned to leave. "You want to escape? Did I allow you to escape?" The corners of Fengjiu's lips curled up slightly. She shot forward like an arrow and leaped onto the back of the fire Qilin. She grabbed the 2 Qilin horns on its head with both hands. "Let go." The fire Qilin shook its head and wanted to throw her off, but it could not get rid of the person on its back. Not only that, but the flames on its body were also extinguished as she rode on it. This made it clear that this human had the ancient fire phoenix's heavenly fire, and its flames could not hurt her at all. Fengjiu clamped the fire Qilin's body with his legs, and one hand holding the Qilin's horns. He clenched his other hand into a fist and punched the fire Qilin fiercely. The powerful force was mixed with hidden energy. With a bang, the fire Qilin cried out, "Let go! Let go of me!" Chapter 40-81. Fengjiu clamped the fire Qilin between her legs and spoke in a low voice, "Qilin beast, I am the Lord of heaven and earth in both heaven realms. If you follow my son, I won't bury you. If you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being rude." Her voice was cold and contained a powerful aura that enveloped the fire Qilin. She knew that it was very difficult to make an ancient divine beast submit to her. If she was not tough enough, she would not be able to tame it. Hearing Fengjiu's words, the Qilin beast paused but still said, "I am an ancient Qilin. How could I acknowledge a human kid as my master? I refuse."
"All right."
"If you refuse, I'll beat you until you think I'm done." A cold light flashed in Fengjiu's eyes. She knew that this ancient Qilin beast had been in a deep slumber for a long time, and its arrogance was hard to erase. Therefore, she did not hold back and immediately leaped onto the Qilin's back and threw a punch at the fire Qilin. Bang, bang, bang. 3 punches containing a powerful aura and a swift and fierce airflow suddenly struck the Qilin beast. Each punch caused the Qilin beast, who was in midair, to fall more than 10 meters down. When the 3rd punch landed, the Qilin beast had been violently smashed into the ground. Under the impact of the powerful airflow and the force of the punch, a loud bang sounded from the ground. A large hole immediately opened up and was quickly filled up by the magma. Roar! The fire Qilin fell sideways into the magma. The boiling hot magma did not seem to hurt it at all. Instead, it did not seem to touch its body. As it stood up, its body shook and the magma splashed out and fell back to the ground, mixing into one. It roared and leaped into the air with its 4 hooves, charging towards Fengjiu in midair. Its speed was fast, and its momentum was fierce like lightning. However, before it could get close to Fengjiu, she kicked it down again.
Bang!
The Qilin beast rolled into the magma again. It stood up with a fierce look in its eyes, full of defiance and anger. It was an ancient divine beast, but it had been defeated by a human again and again. The pride of an ancient divine beast was too much for it to tolerate. "Human, I'll let you have a taste of this prince's power." It roared and leaped from the ground. Using the momentum of the mountain, it soared into the air. Along with the surge of spiritual energy from its body, a raging flame rose and rushed towards Fengjiu. Fengjiu coldly looked at this scene and sneered. "I am a dignified god king expert. If I can't even subdue a little Qilin like you, then I, Fengjiu, will write my name backwards." She waved her hands in front of her, and her natal skyfire gushed out from her body, turning into the shape of a fire dragon and charging toward the Qilin beast.
Who? Swish.
The fierce airflow turned into a fire dragon, roaring and rushing out, colliding with the Qilin beast. The two forces collided with each other. As the two airflows competed, the aura in the air became condensed. The ancient coercion spread, making Yi Feifei and Wang Yu feel as if a mountain was pressing on their hearts, and even breathing became difficult. Perceiving the change of the ancient coercion in the air, Du Fan immediately said to Zi Condor, "Take Feifei and retreat." At the same time, he leaped and came to where Wang Yu was, taking her to a place where the ancient coercion could not reach. Boom. Chapter 4282. Fengjiu stood in the air with her hands clasped behind her back. She looked down at the wretched Qilin beast with a cold expression. She said in a cold voice, "Do you admit defeat?" "I don't admit defeat." It raised its head and roared. "I'll beat you until you admit defeat." As soon as Fengjiu's voice fell, the wind from her palm came down from the air and blasted toward the Qilin beast below. In the distance, Du Fan and the others watched and thought that it was indeed difficult to tame an ancient mythical beast. Ancient mythical beasts were arrogant by nature. Moreover, this Qilin beast had been sleeping for tens of thousands of years. How could it agree to contract with a human when it woke up? However, they believed that in the end, this Qilin beast would still submit to their master. It still had the strength to fight back because its spirit had not been completely destroyed by their master. The purple eagle watched as the ancient Qilin beast rushed forward again and was slapped into the ground again and again. It watched as it was injured again and got up again and again. It could not help but shudder. This human was too cruel. Even the ancient Qilin beast was no match for her. Fortunately, it had submitted early. Otherwise, it would have suffered some flesh wounds. That night, Du Fan and the others, along with the purple eagle, watched from a distance. They watched as the Qilin beast rushed forward again and stood up to fight again and again. From the dark night until the sun rose on the third day, the dying Qilin beast lay on the ground. It looked at Fengjiu, who was standing in the air, and said, "I admit defeat. I admit defeat." It was unable to fight anymore. It was beaten down again, and it clearly realized how powerful this human was. She was so powerful. Perhaps its son would not be too weak. It had been sleeping for tens of thousands of years, but it did not expect to wake up and become a human's contract beast. Even if it did not want to, it had no choice because it did not want to be trapped under the ground and sleep in the magma for tens of thousands of years. Hearing its words, Fengjiu's expression eased. She looked at the Qilin beast covered in cuts and bruises and said, "You won't regret today's decision." As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her hand, and a pill fell into its slightly open mouth. Before the Qilin beast could react, it had already swallowed the pill. It wanted to ask what it was, but unexpectedly, it felt that its exhausted body was gradually being healed by a wave of spiritual energy, and it felt a burst of comfort in its body. After a while, it stood up and shook its body. When it felt that it had almost recovered, it couldn't help but be delighted. "Your medicinal pills are very powerful." Fengjiu glanced at it and said, "Be obedient, and you'll get plenty of good things in the future." As he spoke, he descended from the sky and said, "Today, I will first form a contract with you. When we return, we will cancel the contract between us. Then you can form a life contract with my son." Hearing this, the Qilin beast's eyes flashed and said, "I know." Fengjiu raised her hand and stretched out a finger. Between her fingers, A ray of light shot into the Qilin beast's eyebrows, and a mark was formed as she whispered the contract spell. After the contract between the human and the beast was formed, Fengjiu flicked her sleeves and said, "Go into the space and rest. Don't touch anything in the space." As soon as she finished speaking, the Qilin beast in front of her disappeared from sight and turned into a ray of light and entered her space. Chapter 40-83. Upon seeing this, the people beside him also stepped forward to congratulate him. Fengjiu smiled and rubbed his eyebrows tiredly. He looked at the sky and said, "The curse array of the Nightless Club was broken with the Qilin beast breaking out of the array. Now there is a day and night division. It can be considered as doing a good deed for the people of the Nightless Club. The people here only had day and no night all year round. Now there was finally a day and night division. Generally speaking, it was a good thing. At least, as the day and night returned to normal, the people of this world could live a good life. Moreover, after the day and night division, they believed that the spiritual power of this world would gradually recover. For the cultivators here, perhaps there was a chance to suddenly enter the fairy realm from the nascent soul realm. However, they didn't know if the demonic cultivator was still in this world. They had to go back and investigate. "Let's find a place to rest. We'll go to Infinite City later," Fengjiu said. He glanced around and turned to leave. Thus, Du Fan and the others followed him to a shady place. They found a water source in the mountain forest and prepared to rest and eat something while they were at it. They didn't know what was happening outside, so they didn't know that the entire Nightless Club was jubilant at this time. After a day or two, the people of the Nightless Club saw that their world finally had a sunrise and sunset. There was finally a starry night and a moon. However, no one knew why the day and night division was restored. The ancient city lord and the others were guessing in their hearts. They faintly felt that this was related to Fengjiu and the others. Perhaps their world had a day and night division because of what Fengjiu did. After all, it wasn't surprising that such a powerful person could do something in the Qilin Mountain. Because they were injured, they returned to Infinite City first. When Lord Jiang saw them in the city, he couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Why are you the only ones back? Where are Miss Feng and the others?" They looked at each other and said, "It's a long story. We're injured. Let us rest first." Hearing this, Lord Jiang hurriedly arranged for them and said, "A few days ago, there was a strange phenomenon in the entire Nightless Club. Not long after, there was a day and night division. Now, forces everywhere are guessing what's going on." Lord Jiang walked in with them. As he looked at them, he noticed that their expressions were strange. He understood a little in his heart. It seemed that it was not much different from his guests. In the courtyard of the guest room, they sat down to rest. Then, they looked at Lord Jiang and asked, "Have any demonic cultivators appeared recently?" "Demonic cultivators?" City Lord Jiang was slightly surprised. "We rarely see devil cultivators in this place. How could there be one?" As soon as he finished speaking, he seemed to have thought of something. He couldn't help but be startled. He exclaimed, "The injuries on your bodies couldn't be caused by demonic cultivators, right?"
Yes.
They nodded and said, "We were ambushed by devil cultivators on Qilin Mountain, and those devil cultivators wanted us to submit to them. Fortunately, Miss Feng saved us in the end, so she asked us to come back first and check if there were any traces of devil cultivators." Chapter 40-84. Find out about their background? The few of them were stunned and asked in surprise, "Why would those people want to find out about their background? They don't even know Miss Feng and the rest." Seeing this, City Lord Jiang smiled. "That's because you don't know. On the day they entered the city, a nascent soul cultivator from one of the underground forces in the city had his cultivation crippled by young Master Du and the rest. Although I have suppressed this matter, the other forces in the city have more or less heard of it. Therefore, they are curious about the background of someone who has the ability to cripple a nascent soul cultivator's cultivation." "I see." The few of them suddenly understood and looked at City Lord Jiang. "You're too mean. Didn't you say that you would let us know if you found out anything?" I can't believe he actually managed to suppress this matter. I think that when the time comes, you will definitely know. City Lord Jiang smiled and said, All right, you all have a good rest first. I'll go and settle some matters. As he spoke, he stood up and glanced at the few of them before walking out. I'll let my family members find out about it first, Yuan Pingji said and looked at the others. What about you all? What do you plan to do? Since Miss Feng has instructed us, we won't dare to decline. We will also send a message to our family members to find out about the demonic cultivator and see if there are any discoveries. The others said. City Lord Gu said slowly, My place is a little remote and the demonic cultivator probably won't go there. However, I will send a message to them to be more careful. If there are any discoveries, let me know. So, you don't plan to go back? Yuan Pingji looked at City Lord Gu and asked. Miss Feng and the rest haven't returned yet. I plan to wait for them to return before making any arrangements. City Lord Gu said and stood up. I'll go back to the guest room to rest first. You all should also rest and change your medicine. Recuperating is the most important thing. Seeing this, the few of them did not say anything and went back to the guest room to rest. A few days later, Fengjiu and the rest returned to the city. When they returned, they felt that the city had changed. The black cloth that covered the sun in the past had been removed. The faces of the people in the city were filled with happy smiles. They could be seen everywhere talking about the day and night finally returning to the world. Master, when the matters here are settled, should we go back? Yi Feifei asked. Fengjiu walked slowly and said, Little Fox's ability has not recovered yet. I don't know when she wants to go back. However, this world is an ownerless land. I originally wanted to let Du Fan take over, but he's not interested. As Fengjiu spoke, she glanced at Du Fan helplessly. SSSS. Fengjiu shook his head and smiled. After walking for a while, he saw a group of people walking quickly and stopping in front of him. Ha ha ha, young lady. Our family head would like to invite you to stay in his residence for a few days. I wonder if you would do us the honor? A middle-aged man stepped forward with a smile and cupped his hands. His gaze fell on Fengjiu. Chapter 40-85. My main family is the Su family in the city, the middle-aged man said quickly. Fengjiu smiled and said, We have made an appointment with Governor Jiang. We will go to the city lord's mansion when we come back.
Sorry.
With that, he walked past them. Seeing this, the middle-aged man and others did not dare to stop them. After watching them leave, they hurried to the mansion to report to the family head. When walking to the city lord's mansion, Yi Feifei asked curiously, Master, we don't know them. Why do they want to invite us to their family? These people don't want any benefits. Who knows what they want? Fengjiu said with a smile. Now that the ancient nine-tailed fox spirit and the Kylan beast had been found, he was relaxed. He could leave and go back as soon as things here were solved. Speaking of which, they had been away for almost a year. Thinking of the two children's soft words and the longing in their words, she could not wait to go back to them. As a mother, even if she was away, her heart was tightly tied to the children at home. This kind of tie made people happy. Fengjiu carried the children all the way and just walked quietly. Du Fan and others next to him chatted as they walked. Wang Yu, are you going to be a bridegroom when you go back? Du Fan patted Wang Yu on the shoulder and said with a smile, You've already found yourself a marriage after coming out. You're quite fast. Being teased by him, Wang Yu smiled embarrassedly. When I go back, I will propose marriage. If possible, I would like to invite you to stay for the wedding. We will see how my master will arrange it. However, whether we stay for the wedding or not, you will not be short of a gift. Du Fan said with a smile. When they went to the city lord's mansion, Governor Jiang, who learned that they had returned to the city, came to greet them with people. When he saw them on the way, he quickly greeted them with a smile. Miss Feng, you are back. It must have been a hard journey. City Lord Jiang. Fengjiu nodded slightly. It seems that the city lord will know the moment we enter the city. Ha ha ha. Didn't I instruct the guards in the city to report immediately if they see you return? City Lord Jiang said with a smile. Elder Gu and the others arrived a few days ago, and they're still recuperating in the city lord's estate while waiting for Miss to return. As soon as I learned of your arrival, I had the servants prepare a banquet to welcome you all. Sorry to trouble you, Fengjiu said. No, please. He gestured for her to go first. When the people in the city saw how courteous City Lord Jiang was, they were slightly surprised and couldn't help but look at Fengjiu and the others. They knew these people. When they entered the city some time ago, they seemed to have encountered Wang Laohu and the others. Not long after, they came to the city lord's estate. Under the warm hospitality of the city lord, Fengjiu and the others went back to the guest room to take a bath and rest. When Elder Gu and the others learned that Fengjiu and the others were back, they didn't have time to adjust their qi circulation and meditate, but wanted to see them. However, after all, their identities were different. They couldn't go directly to Fengjiu's courtyard, so they could only wait in the front yard. After drinking a cup of tea, Fengjiu and the others still hadn't appeared. After drinking 2 cups of tea, they still didn't see anyone. Chapter 40-86. Miss Feng. They hurriedly stood up and bowed to her. Fengjiu nodded at them and said, Are your injuries better? She walked in with Du Fan and the others behind her. We're much better now. Thank you for your concern, Miss Feng, they hurriedly said. Fengjiu entered, and City Lord Jiang hurriedly invited her to the seat of honor. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and didn't say anything. She just walked to the seat of honor and sat down. How is the matter that I asked you to investigate? Fengjiu asked and looked at them. After we returned, we sent a message to our family to investigate. In some other places, there were indeed traces of demonic cultivators. However, there weren't many humans, but their strength was above the nascent soul realm. As Yuan Pingji spoke, his face was solemn. He continued, One family rebelled and refused to submit, so they were wiped out by demonic cultivators overnight. However, this matter hasn't spread yet. Hearing this, Fengjiu pondered and said, Now, this realm isn't connected to other realms. Cultivators from other realms can't come here without an extremely powerful teleportation array. Even if the demonic cultivators have such a treasure, there shouldn't be many demonic cultivators teleported here. She spoke slowly and paused. However, there are very few flying immortal cultivators in the Nightless Paradise. As long as the demonic cultivator's strength is above the nascent soul realm, you don't have the ability to fight against them. They looked at each other and said, Miss Feng means that even if demonic cultivators come from other realms, there won't be many of them?
Yes.
Fengjiu responded and looked at them. How about this? We'll set a trap and lure these demonic cultivators to one place, then we'll catch them all in one fell swoop. What does Miss Feng want us to do? Fengjiu smiled and said, We just need to spread the news. She looked at them and said, Just say that the Qilin Beast appeared in Infinite City and used the Qilin Beast to lure them out. Hearing this, they couldn't help but ponder. But if we do this, will they take the bait? These demonic cultivators will definitely ask for credit from their demon masters. If they know that the ancient divine beast Qilin has appeared here, they will naturally be hooked. Based on her understanding of the fiendish cultivators, when such a good thing happened, they would fight to be the first to claim the credit. Therefore, once the news got out, the fiendish cultivators would come to Infinite City without them having to look for them. But this Qilin beast hasn't appeared for tens of thousands of years. Even if we release the news, I'm afraid they won't believe it. Cultivator Lei said. He felt that if he released the news, those people wouldn't be so easily hooked. You just need to do as I say, don't worry about anything else, Fengjiu said. Seeing this, everyone didn't say anything else. They only responded with a yes, and then discussed some matters for a while before leaving one after another. When Fengjiu walked out of the hall and stood in the front yard, she flicked her sleeve and called out softly, Come out. As her voice fell, a golden figure leaped out from her space and landed in front of her. The few people who walked out earlier didn't see this scene, but City Lord Jiang and Lord Gu Cheng, who were walking behind, saw this scene with their own eyes. For a moment, their expressions changed in shock. Ancient Qilin Beast. The two of them exclaimed softly, looking at Fengjiu in disbelief. Chapter 42:87. After hearing her words, the Qilin beast let out a low roar and leaped into the sky, disappearing from sight in the blink of an eye. Only the faint roar of a Qilin could be heard echoing in the sky above Infinite City. City Lord Jiang and City Lord Gu looked at each other in shock, then looked at Fengjiu. Miss Feng found a Qilin beast in Qilin Mountain? Fengjiu responded, then looked at the two, saying, "After today, the news will spread. From today onwards, City Lord Jiang will be very busy." City Lord Jiang's expression turned solemn, and he said, "Miss Feng, don't worry. In a moment, I will give the order to strengthen the guards in the manor and pay attention to the movements in the city." Fengjiu nodded and said, "All right, then I will go back and rest first. If there is anything, you can tell Du Fan and the others." City Lord Jiang glanced at Du Fan, then cupped his hands and said, "Okay, I understand." Thus, after arranging everything, Fengjiu returned to the courtyard first. Not long after, the Qilin beast, which had gone around the city, returned to the courtyard and instantly entered her space. "If there is nothing important, don't disturb me," Fengjiu said to Du Fan and the others beside her, then stepped into the room. Reaching out, she set up a barrier and entered the space. Inside the space, she glanced at the contracted beasts inside the space, then walked to the spring and looked at the golden lotus that was emitting a soft golden light. She went to the side of the golden lotus and sat down cross-legged, placing her hands behind her back. Following the circulation of her spiritual energy, her body gradually emitted a green light. Seeing their master cultivating there, the contracted beasts inside the space were tactful and did not disturb her. They all quietly lay down to the side. On the other side, in the Feng manor, two little people were lying on the table, their clear and beautiful eyes blinking as they looked at the jade communication tablet in front of them. "Big brother, what do you think Mother is doing now?" Yu asked curiously. "Mother might be thinking about us too," Little Muchen said as he stared at the jade token in front of him. Hearing these words, Yu's eyes shone, and her immature voice carried a bit of probing. "Big brother, since Mother is also thinking about us, then can we use communication jade tablet to talk to Mother?" Little Muchen shook his head. "Daddy said that we can't keep bothering Mother. Mother will come back after she's done with her business. But you are Mrs. Mother." She leaned on the table and pouted as she spoke in a small voice. Little Muchen thought about it and suggested, "Why don't we go memorize the incantation? When Mother comes back, we can recite it to her." "I can recite all the mantras that Daddy taught me," the little one said listlessly. "Then let's practice footwork," Little Mu Chun suggested again. Hearing these words, Yu thought for a bit, then nodded her head. "Okay, let's practice footwork." Thus, the two little guys put away their communication jades and walked outside. Arriving at the open space in the courtyard, the little ones practiced the footwork that their daddy taught them step by step. Xianyuan Mo stood outside the courtyard and watched. Seeing that the two were practicing seriously, he did not disturb them. Instead, he turned around and left. After walking for a while, he saw Huileng coming over to greet him. "Master." Huileng called out and said, "I received news that the demonic cultivators have begun to move again recently. It seems that they're expanding their forces everywhere." Chapter 42:88. When they arrived at the pavilion, Xianyuan Mo sat down and asked, "Have you found out where they gather?" "We don't have many people in this area. We only got the news from some aristocratic families. We haven't found their base yet, but we know that they are trying to rope in some aristocratic families and underground forces." Huileng looked at him and said, "If the aristocratic families are not desperate, they won't seek refuge with the demonic cultivators. However, it's hard to say about the underground forces. Therefore, I'm worried that if the demonic cultivators collude with the underground forces, they will become stronger and stronger. Then find them and destroy them," Xianyuan Mo said in a low voice. He stared at the sky and said, "Let Shi Kong deal with this matter. We can't let it grow. Also, try to find out where the demon lord is hiding." "Yes," Huilang replied immediately and asked, "Master, is there any news from Madam? How long will it take for her to return?" She had been gone for almost a year. He didn't know how she was doing. She should be almost done with her business there. Perhaps she will be back soon. Xianyuan Mose lowered his eyes and said slowly. Hearing this, Grey Wolf grinned and said, "That's good. We haven't seen Madam for almost a year. Not only do the two young masters miss her, but we also miss her." As he spoke, he bowed and said, "Then I'll go talk to Qi Kong about this matter." Xianyuan Mose sat quietly in the pavilion for a moment. Then, he saw two small figures practicing their newly learned footwork as they walked towards him. They seemed to be competing to see who was faster, as both of them swept past like the wind. Seeing this, the corners of his mouth curled up and a satisfied smile appeared in his eyes. His and Fengjiu's children were indeed very talented. In addition, they were born with innate spiritual bodies. Their cultivation speed was incomparable to that of ordinary people. With their cultivation speed, he felt that in a few years, not to mention children of the same age, even those who were older than them might not be able to surpass them. Thinking about this, he nodded inwardly. It was a good thing that their cultivation was stronger, but even if it was cultivation, they couldn't be too hasty. Perhaps because they saw Xianyuan Mose was sitting in the pavilion, two small figures came back after circling around. Yu trotted and threw herself into the bosom of Xianyuan Mose, then happily said, Daddy, my footwork is faster than Big Brother. Big Brother is unable to catch up with me." Xianyuan Mose smiled and rubbed her head. He carried her to sit on his lap and said, "You is very powerful." As he spoke, he also carried his son and said, "How about Daddy take you out to play today? Where do you want to go? Daddy will take you there." Hearing this, the two children's eyes lit up. "Really? Daddy, are you going to play with us?" "Yes, Daddy will accompany you to play," Xianyuan Mose replied, his eyes full of affection. "Father, you wants to go boating." "Father, I want to go too." "Okay, Daddy will take you there." He stood up. With one hand holding his daughter and the other hand holding his son, he said, "After boating, Daddy will take you to eat pastries. There is a shop in the city that makes very good pastries. Your mother also likes to eat them." "Okay." The two children answered in unison. With a happy face, they followed him out of the door. Chapter 42:89. For the two children who rarely went out, it was a very happy thing to be able to go out with their father. Sitting in the carriage, Yu secretly lifted the curtain and looked outside. She saw that the street outside was bustling with noise and excitement. There were many things that they had never seen before, and some children who were about the same age as them were wearing open-crotch pants and running around behind the adults. The little one couldn't help but blink curiously. "Daddy, why are those children wearing torn pants? Aren't they embarrassed?" Yu's soft voice was filled with curiosity. Hearing his sister's words, little Moo-chan also lifted the curtain and looked outside. Sure enough, there were children who were older than them who were also wearing open-crotch pants. Their clothes were very dirty and messy, and their little faces were also like little kittens. "They are so dirty. Why don't they wash?" Little Moo-chan also turned around and asked their father. Xianyuan Mose smiled and took a sip of the tea on the small table in the carriage. He said, "Because they are children from ordinary families." "What is an ordinary family's child?" The two children didn't understand and asked. He put down the teacup and looked at the two children and earnestly said, "An ordinary family's child means that their family is ordinary. They may not have cultivation, and their family has no money or power. They have to run around and work hard for 3 meals a day. In order to earn money to support the family, they may not take care of their children." His voice paused, and he looked at the two children and said, "And your parents are the masters of heaven and earth, the world's strongest. You are different from them from your birth. Your starting line is higher than others. When you were born, you had everything that many people in this world can't even get in their lifetime. However, the responsibility on your shoulders, as well as the expectations we have for you, are heavier and higher than others. Even the difficulties and dangers you will experience in the future will be more than others. The two children listened, as if they didn't understand. They looked at each other and said, "We understand." Xianyuan picked up the teacup and took another sip of tea. He played with the teacup in his hand and said, "In this world, even if you don't divide people into different classes, people will divide themselves into different classes. This world is the world of the strong. If you are strong, you can control your own fate. If you are weak, your fate will be in the hands of others. Even death cannot be decided by yourself. This is the rule of this world." The two little fellows sat in the carriage as they listened to their father speak. Perhaps they did not understand some of the words, but there were some that they could understand. Leng Hua, who was driving the carriage, and Bai Qingcheng looked at each other and couldn't help but show a smile. The two children were still so young. The carriage moved slowly. When it reached the destination, the two children got off the carriage and stopped it. Only then did they let the masters get off the carriage. Today, the weather was still sunny. There weren't many people at the lakeside. A gentle breeze blew across the lake, creating ripples on the surface of the lake. The two children were like birds that were set free, running to the lakeside. "Father, father, come quickly." Yu ran and shouted. At the same time, she turned her head and waved at Xianyuan. Chapter 4290. In front of them, Yu was squatting by the lakeside and playing with water. Her boots were already soaked, and the corner of her skirt was also stained with water droplets. Little Muchen stood to the side and watched while saying, "Sister, your skirt is wet." "Brother, brother, come quickly, ah." Little Yu giggled. She raised her leg and heavily stepped on the water. Seeing the water splash all over her body, she couldn't help but giggle. Fun, fun, really fun. She clapped her little hands and stepped on the water to play. When she saw a small fish hiding in the shallow grass by the lakeside, her eyes couldn't help but light up. "Brother, there's a small fish here." As she spoke, she walked towards the shallow grass. Not far away, Xianyuan saw this and said to Leng Hua, "Take them away from the lakeside. Be careful not to fall. In addition, find a small boat. Ben Jun will take the two of them to row."
"Yes,"
Leng Hua answered, and tiptoed forward to pick up Yu, who was walking towards the shallow grass. Then he went to little Muchen and picked him up as well and brought him to stand on a rock. "Qingcheng, take Yu to the carriage to change into a clean skirt and boots." Leng Hua looked at Bai Qingcheng and said, "Okay." Bai Qingcheng responded and went forward to carry Yu to the carriage. "Muchen, do you want to go with Uncle Hua to find a small boat?" Leng Hua asked with a smile. He nodded and followed Leng Hua to the other side. Xianyuan looked on and stood with his hands behind his back. His gaze swept across the lake. After his daughter changed into a new dress and came back, he stretched out his hand and said, Father will carry you." Little Yu happily rushed forward and threw herself into his embrace. Like a little bird, she kept talking nonstop. "Father, father, you just saw a small fish. Small fish is this big." She stretched out her little hand and gestured. "Father, can we catch fish from the small boat?" "Yu wants to catch a big fish, not a small one." Hearing this, Xianyuan smiled. "I can catch it." He paused for a moment before asking, "Yu, do you want to eat fish?" And Yu wants to eat big fish." She gestured with her hands, drawing a big circle in front of her. Bai Qingcheng, who was following behind, couldn't help but smile when she saw this. She couldn't help but think of her master when she saw how excited her little master's eyes were. Master had been gone for almost a year. According to Leng Hua, Master should be coming back soon. But when would he come back? "Father, sister, I'm here." On the lake, on a small boat, little Muchen stood at the bow of the boat and waved at them. His small voice spread across the lake and into the ears of the people by the lake. The eyes of some of the men and women who were playing around lit up when they saw the child dressed in a white robe on the small boat. When they looked at Xianyuan and the little girl in his arms, they couldn't help but secretly praise them in their hearts. This family was really outstanding and handsome. Even the appearance of the attendant behind them was also exceptional. Who knew where they came from? For a moment, many young men and women stared at them and sized them up. But even more of the men stared at Bai Qingcheng while the women sneaked glances at Xianyuan Mo's. They didn't think that this was a family, because although the appearance of the woman behind them was exceptional, she always walked 3 steps behind the black-robed man's child. Chapter 4291. Because Leng Hua also got on the boat, Bai Qingcheng didn't follow. Instead, she stopped at the shore and watched them get on the boat and row towards the lake. The children's laughter was like a silver bell on the boat, reverberating in the air and entering everyone's ears. On the boat, the 2 children sat at the bow, watching the fish swimming in the water and smiling happily. Little Yu stretched out her hand to catch a fish, but was stopped by a shout. You can't do this. You'll fall into the lake. Xianyuan Mo's calmly said. Seeing his daughter retract her hand, he was satisfied and relaxed his expression, saying, Just sit on the boat and watch. While speaking, he looked at Leng Hua. Leng Hua faintly smiled and looked for the boatman to get a long bamboo pole. The bamboo pole had a sharp end, so it could be used to catch fish. Watch carefully, Leng Hua said as he stood on the side of the boat and looked at the fish in the water. When he found a relatively large fish, he stabbed the bamboo pole into the water. With a whoosh, the sharp bamboo pole pierced through the water and pierced the body of the swimming fish. Ah! Caught it! Yu happily clapped her hands, her small face brimming with a pleasantly surprised smile. Little Muchen saw that the bamboo pole had pierced a fish and couldn't help but smile. His gaze was fixed on the fish on the bamboo pole. Crash! Leng Hua lifted the bamboo pole, and the palm-sized fish that had been pierced struggled under the sun, motionless. There's a fish basket here. Little Muchen quickly handed the fish basket to Leng Hua. After putting the fish in, Leng Hua looked at them and said, Do you want to try? Yes. The 2 children agreed at the same time. Their eyes were filled with expectation as they looked at Leng Hua. After a while, they looked at Xianyuan Mo's, who was standing at the side with his hands behind his back, and asked, Daddy, can we try? Xianyuan Mo's replied and said, Pay attention to your safety. Be careful not to fall into the water. Yes. The 2 children nodded quickly. They stood by the side of the boat. Leng Hua took them to catch fish. Some were big, some were small. The water splashed and wet the corners of their clothes, but the 2 children had a lot of fun. When the sky gradually darkened, they sat in the carriage and went to the pastry house in the city. Yama Lord, can I go buy some pastries and bring them back? Leng Hua looked at Xianyuan Mo's. Seeing that the sky was getting dark, he thought that it was better not to stay outside for too long. It was the same to buy some pastries back to eat. Don't worry, let's go down together. I'll take them to the night market later, Xianyuan Mo's said, as he got off the carriage first. Only then did he carry the 2 children down. I'll stay behind to guard the carriage. You 2 go in, Bai Qingcheng said, as she drove the carriage to the back. The 2 children held Xianyuan Mo's hand and entered the pastry house. They went to the 2nd floor. Leng Hua followed behind them. After sitting down on the 2nd floor, Leng Hua ordered some of his signature pastries and tea and waited at the side. Daddy, I want to go to the toilet, Little Muchen said as he looked at Xianyuan Mo's. I also want to go. Little Yu raised her small hand and said with a smile. She stepped forward and held her brother's hand and said, You will go with brother. Xianyuan Mo's glanced at the 2 children and said to Leng Hua, Take them. Let Qingcheng follow you. Chapter 4292. You come, I'll take you there. Bai Qingcheng walked over to her side and held her hand. Then, she said to Leng Hua, I'll take her there. Later, I'll bring her to the 2nd floor. Okay. Leng Hua responded and led little Muchen to the back. Bai Qingcheng held Yu's hand and led her to the other side. On the 2nd floor, Xianyuan Mo's held a cup of tea in his hands and looked out at the bustling streets with people coming and going. Just as he was about to look away, a small figure darted into the crowd like a fairy. Seeing that who was wearing a pink-colored small dress, quietly turned her head to look at him, and again revealing a crafty smile, she drilled into the crowd, causing his eyebrows to slightly wrinkle. Because of his worry, he was about to stand up and go downstairs when he saw Bai Qingqing quietly following behind him. Seeing this, his anxious heart finally relaxed. Little Mukin came back with Leng Hua, but when he saw that his sister was not around, he couldn't help but ask his father, "Daddy, is little sister not back yet?" "She sneaked out to play," Xianyuan Mo said, and gestured for them to look at the small figure on the street below. Leng Hua and little Mukin were startled. They quickly went forward and looked at the street. Sure enough, they saw the small figure moving around and looking around. "I'll go and bring her back," little Mukin said, and was about to go downstairs. "No need," Xianyuan Mo said, and gestured for him to sit down. "Let her go outside and take a look."
But
little Mukin was a little worried. At this time, Leng Hua's voice was heard. "Qingqing is secretly following behind."
it'll be fine.
Leng Hua said gently, and looked at Xianyuan Mo's. Is probably just curious about the outside world, and doesn't want us to follow her. That's why she sneaked out to play. Xianyuan Mo's took a sip of tea and said, "Tell Qingqing to secretly watch over her. Don't come out." "Yes, sir," Leng Hua answered, and took out his communication jade. Little Muchin saw that his father's face was dark and seemed a little angry, so he did not say anything. He just sat quietly and ate the pastries, waiting for his sister to come back. On the other side, little who had sneaked out to play, had a big smile on her face as she strode along the main street with her short legs. When she saw a small stall selling toys, she leaned against the stall and looked at it. After picking a few things, she took out a gold coin and gave it to the stall owner. Then she skipped away. A little girl who was less than 3 years old was wandering on the street by herself and occasionally took out gold coins to buy things. It could be said that she was targeted almost immediately. The two hoodlums gathered together and whispered to each other. From time to time, they would stare at the little person in front of them as they followed behind. After looking left and right to make sure that no one was following the little person, they immediately quickened their pace to catch up. When Bai Qingqing, who was hiding in the dark, saw this, her face turned cold. Just as she was about to step forward, someone put a hand on her shoulder. She instinctively reached out to grab the person and wanted to throw him away. However, she heard Leng Hua's voice. "It's me." Bai Qingqing paused and looked back. She saw that other than Leng Hua, the Yama Lord and little Muchen had also come. She immediately bowed and respectfully called out, "Yama Lord." Xianyuan Mo slowly walked forward and asked, "Why did you let her sneak out?" Chapter 4293. Go back and accept your punishment. Xianyuan Mo said calmly as he strode forward. "Yes." Bai Qingqing did not dare to say more and just agreed. They slowly followed behind, and in front of them, Yi had been watching from the dark. He watched as the two gangsters handed each of the two children a piece of silver and then gave them some candy. The two children happily kept the silver and skipped to side. "For you." Looked at the two children who were nearly a head taller than her and blinked her eyes. She shook her head and said, "Won't eat. Daddy said I can't casually eat things given by others." Her soft voice softened the hearts of those who heard it. What's more, she put her little hands behind her back and shook her head with a determined look. "This candy is delicious. Try a piece," one of the boys said as he handed the candy in his hand to her. "No, is a good baby. Must listen to Daddy. If Daddy says I can't eat it, then I can't eat it." She still shook her head and said as she stepped back. Seeing this, the two children kept the candy and said, "Then we'll take you to play. There's something fun over there." They pointed to a direction in front of them. "What is it?" asked curiously and looked in the direction they were pointing. "You'll know when we take you there." Could not help but hesitate. "But I sneaked out. If I don't go back for too long, Daddy will know. I have to go back." "It's over there," It's very close. Go back after you see it. Let's go, we'll take you there. The two children said and stepped forward to hold her hand and led her to the front. Looking at his daughter being taken away, Xianyuanmos looked at his son and asked, "Did you see the problem?" "Yes, I saw it." Little Muchin looked like a little adult and nodded seriously. "Then tell me, can your sister escape?" Xianyuanmos asked again. Muchin thought for a moment and shook his head. "I don't know." "Then let's go and have a look," Xianyuanmos said as he led him forward. Arriving at a shabby courtyard, after the two children brought you inside, they ran outside, and in a blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace. You only reacted after quite a while, but at that time, the courtyard door was already closed, and two men who came out of nowhere were also guarding the door. Hee, look at this dress, it's all top-quality goods. It seems like this little girl is the child of a rich family. So, what if they're from a wealthy family? This is not the first time we have done this kind of thing. While speaking, both of them surrounded you. A wretched smile appeared on his face. "Which family's young miss are you? You should have a lot of valuable things on you, right? Quickly take it out for us uncles to see." Both of them loudly coaxed as they walked towards you, a step by step. You blinked her eyes and asked, "Do you all want money?" While speaking, she fished out something from her bosom. You has it. While speaking, she took out something that looked like medicinal powder and threw it towards them. "Bad people can't give money. Bad people, quickly go away, go away." Chapter 4294. Let go of me, let go of me, let go of me. The little person struggled, but was lifted up in the air. Her neck was strangled by the clothes, making her feel somewhat uncomfortable, making her feel afraid and also want to cry. "Let go of you? Haha, now that you have fallen into our hands, you still want to escape? That's enough. Quickly check her things and see if she still has any money in her space. Taking advantage of the time when the sky is still not too late, we should directly sell her." Hearing these two people discussing, Ewer struggled, and taking advantage of one of them not paying attention, she stretched out her leg and kicked, directly kicking that person, making him groan, and both of his hands covered the place between his legs. Because of the pain, the temper of that man also exploded, and he raised his hand wanting to hit her. In the dark, Xianyuanmos coldly looked, and killing intent appeared in his eyes. He saw that if that person dared to hit his daughter, he would cripple that person. "Are you crazy? This is merely a little milk baby who is not even 3 years old. If you slap her, will she still want her face?" The other person beside him held his hand and berated in a low voice. "This little girl has been kicking and jumping all over the place. Truly hateful," that person said, and ferociously glared at you. You two are hateful. You two are bad people." She struggled, and like a wisp of smoke, she ran in the courtyard. Using her newly learned footwork, she chased after those two people. "Come and catch me, come and catch me." Two men clenched their teeth and chased several laps, and discovered that even they were unable to catch up with the running speed of this little child, so they couldn't help but look at each other. Then one of them took out a small net and directly tied her up. Let go of me, let go of me." You shouted in the net. "Go, you quickly go and search her body, and take away all the valuable things from her body," one of them said, and hinted the other person to quickly come forward. The other person muttered while walking forward. Just when he was about to extend his hand towards you, Xianyuanmos and others came out from the dark, and at the same time, a low and deep voice penetrated through with cold intent entered into the ears of those two people. "Cut off 2 of their legs, cripple 1 of their hands, then throw them into Beast Garden to feed the beasts." Xianyuanmos indifferently instructed. Who are you people? Let me go, let me go." Yi, who was hiding in the dark, immediately appeared and picked up the 2 people who had turned pale with fright. "Father." Seeing him, you couldn't help but call out in pleasant surprise. "Sister, do you know that this is very dangerous?" Little Muchin came forward and said, helping to remove the net. Seeing her father's calm expression, you also didn't dare to get too close. She only called out in a low voice, "Father." Then she lowered her head, not daring to look at them. Xianyuan Mose looked at the two children in front of him. He didn't have to worry about his son, but his daughter was very naughty. If Ping Jean didn't pay attention, he didn't know what she would sneak out to do. Just like this time, if he didn't teach her a lesson, she wouldn't be afraid. After calling out to her father, she didn't see any response from him. As a result, little Yu didn't dare to speak and only stood there quietly with her head lowered. Xianyuan Mose walked to the stone table in the middle of the courtyard and sat down. He looked at his daughter and asked, Tell father, why did you want to sneak out to play? Could it be that you didn't listen to father's words? Chapter 40-95. Xianyuan Mose didn't say anything and just looked at her quietly. Seeing that she lowered her head and didn't say anything, he stood up and walked out. At the same time, he instructed Leng Hua, "Take them back." As soon as he finished speaking, he walked away first.
Daddy.
Yu looked up, her eyes filled with helplessness. After watching his father leave, little Mukin stepped forward and held Yu's hand. His little face was full of seriousness. "Little sister, Daddy is worried about you. You have to be obedient and good. Big brother, I just thought that we would go back in a while," she said in a small voice and looked at them helplessly. Leng Hua rubbed her head and said, "All right, let's go back first and talk about it later. You don't have the strength to protect yourselves and it's easy to get into trouble. Next time, you can't do this again." Yu lowered her head and responded. This time, seeing that her father was angry, she really remembered this matter in her heart. Because Xianyuan Mose went back first, they didn't go with him. Therefore, when they reached the residence, Yu's footsteps couldn't help but become slower and slower. "It's okay. Go and apologize to your father. Remember this lesson, and he won't be angry." Leng Hua comforted her gently. But Daddy is so angry. Does he not want you anymore? Does he hate you, She raised her little face and looked at Leng Hua pitifully. Children are sensitive and their hearts are fragile. Seeing her father, who had always doted on her, fling his sleeves and leave with a dark face, she felt uneasy and helpless. She didn't know what to do. "Little sister, I'll go with you," little Mukin said, and stretched out his little hand to pat her head. Then he held her little hand. "Let's go. Big brother will go with you. It's okay." Leng Hua stood in the same place and watched the two children walk forward hand in hand. He couldn't help but reveal a smile and walked slowly behind them. In the main courtyard, Xianyuan Mose was reading a book. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the two children enter, but he didn't look up. He just sat there quietly and continued to read the book in his hand. Just as the two children were about to enter, Huilang, who was standing outside the door, awkwardly looked at his master inside. Then walking to the side of Yu, he said, Your father punishes you by grounding you. You go with Uncle Huilang." The two children were stunned when they heard this. They seemed to have never imagined that the matter would be so serious, and they couldn't help but look at Leng Hua behind them with pleading eyes. When Leng Hua saw this, he took a step forward and glanced inside. He lowered his voice and said to Huilang, "Are you restricting Yu's feet? Did the Yama Lord say how long it would last?" Master said, 3 days. Huilang continued. Furthermore, he also asked you, to copy 100 characters. Hearing this, Leng Hua didn't know what to say, so he could only say to Yu, "Since it's like this, you go with Huilang." Knowing that she was wrong, Yu didn't dare to say more. She could only obediently follow Huilang and leave. "Mukin, you come with me." Leng Hua motioned and led him away. After watching them leave, Xianyuan Mose put down the book in his hand and stood up with his hands behind his back. He slowly walked out and looked at the sky, and his heart couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 40-96. On the other side, Fengjiu did not know what was happening in Xianyuan Mose. She was practicing in the space, and Du Fan and the others were dealing with the matters outside. In the blink of an eye, a few days had passed since the news was released. The figures of devil cultivators had already appeared in the city. However, Due to the instructions of Du Fan and the others, everything in the city was as usual. No one attacked the devil cultivators, only secretly watching and paying attention. On this day, after receiving the news from the city lord, Du Fan came to Fengjiu's courtyard. He wanted to tell her about the devil cultivators, but she was still in closed-door training. Therefore, he took Yi Feifei and Wang Yu out of the city lord's mansion, ready to catch all the devil cultivators in one fell swoop. Leng Shuang stayed in the courtyard to guard. Young Master Du, those people have been gathering in that dilapidated house for a few days. We have been keeping an eye on the people who are watching. Those people haven't done anything. I think there are at least 20 of them. Everyone should be here. City Lord Jiang said in a low voice. From the information they had gathered, there were only about 20 or so devil cultivators. Other than those who had died in the Qilin Mountain, it seemed that there were only about 20 or so devil cultivators left. It would be easier to wipe them all out in one fell swoop. However, they did not know who would emerge victorious once the two sides clashed. Very good. This time, we must catch all of them in one fell swoop. Do this later. Du Fan also lowered his voice and told him the plan. Okay, I know. Lord Jiang responded and followed them all the way to the place. When they arrived at the place they were watching, he took them to see City Lord Gu and the others. Du Fan listened to them talk about what they had found in the past 2 days while staring at the devil cultivators. He saw that the devil cultivators were all above the Yuanying realm, and there were 23 of them. If these people joined forces, it would be difficult for them to deal with them. Therefore, he followed the original plan and told Yi Feifei a few words. Then, he let Wang Yu and her go to another place to lie in ambush and wait for the best time. When night fell, one of the Yuanying realm cultivators went forward according to the plan. When he was about to jump over the dilapidated courtyard, he was discovered. Who is it? A cold shout came. The two devil cultivators immediately looked in the direction of the Yuanying realm cultivator. Seeing the figure turn and run, they immediately chased after him. The one who led the two devil cultivators out was the cultivator surnamed Lei. At this time, he felt a strong murderous intent behind him. He had to run desperately to the place where he had set up the ambush, of course. The two devil cultivators did not expect an ambush, so when they chased after him and entered an alley, an arrow shot, a dark arrow shot, and hit one of the devil cultivators. Xiao! When the sharp sound of airflow fell, one of the devil cultivators groaned, and his body instantly froze in place. A sharp arrow containing spiritual power pierced through his body and flew back to Yi Feifei's hand. She put the bloody arrow back on the bowstring and shot it almost at the same time, hitting the other person. 2 groans sounded one after the other. In the blink of an eye, the 2 devil cultivators died at Yi Feifei's hands. Chapter 4297. Why hasn't there been any movement after so long? One of them felt that something was not quite right. He glanced at the few people beside him and said, "You guys go and take a look. Be careful." The other 3 people looked at each other and headed in that direction. Not long after they left, City Lord Jiang walked out from the shadows. When he saw the 3 devil cultivators, he turned around and ran. When the 3 devil cultivators saw this, they naturally could not let him go. They immediately chased after him. Stop! In the shadows, Yi Feifei aimed at the people who were chasing after him. He aimed his arrow at one of them and released it. The sharp arrow shot out with a whoosh. When the 3 of them heard the sound, they immediately dodged. However, after they dodged the first arrow, the second arrow that came right after was much faster than the previous one. It was to the extent that they were injured by Yi Feifei's arrow before they could even fight him head-on. Hiss! One of them sucked in a cold breath. As the sky was gradually darkening, the surrounding environment was not in their favor. Hence, they wanted to retreat. However, just as they retreated, the arrow that was hidden in the shadows shot out once again, carrying with it the aura of death.
Puff!
A sharp arrow unexpectedly pierced through the heart of one of the devil cultivators. The devil cultivator stood there stiffly and spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes widened in shock as he looked in front of him.
His mouth was slightly agape.
He did not dare to believe that a dignified fairy like him would die at the hands of a cultivator who is not as powerful as him. In the alley, a murderous aura mixed with the smell of blood permeated the air. It was somewhat horrifying in the night. On the other side, in the house, a few people felt that something was not right. They kept retreating and looking around vigilantly. However, other than the night sky and the rustling of the night wind, there seemed to be nothing special. "Follow me and take a look," one of the devil cultivators said. He did not let one or two people go forward. Instead, he led a group of people forward. Just as they were about to leave the courtyard, a figure suddenly leaped onto the wall from outside. He stood there facing the night wind and stared at them below. "What are we going to look at?" Du Fan held a fan in one hand and gently fanned his chest. The other hand was behind his back. He had a gentle smile on his face as his gaze fell on the devil cultivators. Du Fan. Someone recognized him and could not help but cry out in alarm. His expression changed greatly. "Du Fan is here. The ghost doctor must be here too." They looked around and searched for the terrifying ghost, Dr. Fengjiu. Du Fan gently fanned himself with the fan in his hand as he sneered, "I don't need my master to deal with all of you. We are more than enough." His gaze swept across the devil cultivators as he said, "How do you want to die? I can fulfill your wish." "He's alone."
Kill him.
One of the demonic cultivators said, calming the fear in his heart. He immediately held his sword and charged forward, wanting to kill Du Fan. However, he did not expect that Du Fan's strength was much higher than theirs. Chapter 4298. For Du Fan to have such strength at such a young age, it was truly inconceivable in their eyes. Not to mention dealing with those 20 or so devil cultivators. Even if another group of them came, Du Fan would be able to deal with them himself. They watched in the dark and saw that he acted so fast that no one had a chance to react. The devil cultivators around him died at his feet one by one. When there were only 2 people left, they thought he would kill them directly. However, they didn't expect that he would directly break their chins, abolish their cultivation, and break their hands. Only then did he knock them out on the ground. Seeing this scene, they were stunned for a moment. They looked at each other and walked out. "Young Master Du, this is. Take them back for interrogation," Du Fan said, and then said to them, "Please help me take these 2 people back." "That's not a problem." They nodded their heads and carried him back. "Big Brother Du, those people over there have also been dealt with." Yi Feifei rushed over and stopped beside Du Fan. "Then let's go back. We've captured 2 of them alive. Let's go back and interrogate them," Du Fan said as he glanced at the 2 of them.
Okay.
Yi Feifei and Wang Yu responded and followed him and Lord Jiang back, leaving the other people to clean up the traces on the ground. In the dark night, calmness was quickly restored. The night wind blew gently, blowing away the smell of blood in the air. In the dungeon, the 2 devil cultivators were handcuffed. The poison hidden in their mouths had been cleaned, but their chins were still open. They were still unconscious and had not woken up. Du Fan told people to look after them and then left. He planned to wait until dawn tomorrow and let his master personally interrogate them to see if he could get information about the Devil Lord from the 2 devil cultivators. The next morning, Fengjiu, who was cultivating in the space, finally came out. As soon as he came out of the space, he saw Du Fan and others sitting in the courtyard. Seeing this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and ask, "Why are you all here? Is something the matter?" "Mistress, we've already cleared out the gathering place of the devil cultivators last night. We've annihilated more than 20 devil cultivators, but we've left 2 alive. We're waiting for Mistress to personally interrogate them." Du Fan's gaze fell on her as he spoke. He originally thought that if his master didn't come out today, he would call her out. Now that he saw that his master had come out, it was just right. Upon hearing his words, Fengjiu was slightly surprised.
Oh.
Annihilated? Yes, we've killed more than 20 people. I'm guessing that these are the only ones who came here because other than that, there aren't many traces of demonic cultivators. Fengjiu nodded. Very good. Where are the 2 survivors?
Take me there.
Yes, master, this way. Du Fan said as he led the way. When they arrived at the dungeon, only Fengjiu and Du Fan followed them in. Even Lord Jiang and Wang Yu wanted to follow them in, but were stopped outside by Leng Shuang. Just wait outside. Mistress doesn't like too many people when she's interrogating, Leng Shuang said indifferently. After his voice fell, he no longer looked at them. Hearing this, Yi Feifei also stood outside and didn't go in. Chapter 4299. In the dungeon, Fengjiu looked at the two unconscious, demonic cultivators. Seeing that their cultivations had been crippled and their jaws had been severed, she flipped her palm and took out 2 pills. Let them take this. She gestured and handed the 2 pills to Du Fan beside her. After Du Fan took the pills, he stepped forward and stuffed them into the 2's mouths, at the same time connecting their jaws. Because of the pain, the 2 woke up from their unconscious state. When they slowly opened their eyes and regained consciousness, the first thing they saw was the beautiful ghost, Dr. Fengjiu, dressed in red. When they saw her, the 2's pupils shrank and fear flashed across their eyes. However, in the next moment, they thought, since they were already in this state, could it be that there was something worse than this? When they thought of this, they felt relieved, and the fear in their eyes dissipated. Fengjiu was in no hurry to ask and only looked at them quietly. As time passed, she slowly said, "Perhaps you don't know? The people who came here are all dead. Only the 2 of you are still alive." Hearing this, the 2 demonic cultivators' hearts trembled, and they lowered their eyes in silence. They didn't know that the ghost, Dr. Fengjiu, was here. If they knew, they wouldn't have come here to die. With your strength, you can't be considered important subordinates by the Devil Master's side. The ones in charge of you should be the Devil Master's protector, right? Fengjiu asked slowly, her voice light and unhurried. Yes, we are the left protector's subordinates. The 2 demonic cultivators couldn't help but speak. As soon as they spoke, they were shocked and looked up at Fengjiu in shock. Although you are not the Devil Master's subordinates, you are still the left protector's subordinates. You should know where the Devil Master is hiding. She paused and looked at the 2 who were biting their lips and refusing to speak. Blood seeped out from the corners of their mouths, and their pale faces became even paler. Their eyes were unfocused, determined and wavering. Is it hidden in some deep mountain or forest? Or in some valley? Fengjiu walked closer and continued to ask softly. It's in... The 2 of them looked at her in front of them. Looking at her beautiful face and listening to her gentle voice, their minds gradually became blank. However, their mouths uncontrollably revealed the Devil Master's hiding place. Fengjiu's eyes flashed when she heard the 2 of them mention that place. She was originally worried that the 2 of them would also be bound by the blood curse. However, it seemed that the 2 of them were not bound by the blood curse. Otherwise, they would have lost their lives the moment they said that. After getting the information he wanted, Fengjiu glanced at Du Fan and said, "Clean it up." Then he turned around and walked out. Du Fan nodded. After she left, she walked towards the 2 men and ended their lives with her own hands. When City Lord Jiang and the others who were waiting outside saw Fengjiu come out, they couldn't help but quickly step forward and ask, "Miss Feng, how is it?" Fengjiu glanced at him, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. "City Lord Jiang, don't worry. There aren't many demonic cultivators who sneaked into this world, and they are all dead now. There won't be any more demonic cultivators coming here in the near future." As she spoke, she looked up at the sky and said, "After a while, even if they want to come, they won't be able to." Chapter 4300. Fengjiu pursed her lips and smiled, saying, "Naturally, it's because soon, this world will no longer be without a master." Finished speaking, she stepped forward. Hearing this, several people's hearts trembled, unable to hide the excitement in their eyes. Did she mean that she would be in charge of this world? If their world had such a powerful ruler like her, it would naturally be their blessing. Du Fan and Leng Shuang followed back to Fengjiu's courtyard. Yi Feifei's Wang Yu guarded outside the courtyard, while Du Fan and Leng Shuang entered the room. Master, what do you plan to do now? Du Fan asked. Fengjiu pondered for a moment, then said, I'll find a time to lay down spiritual power and boundary formations in this world. This way, we can go back even without the help of the nine-tailed fox. When we go back in the future, we'll see if Luo Yu and the others are willing to take charge of this world.
Good.
Du Fan nodded and asked, Master, is there anything we can help with? Fengjiu smiled and said, There's no need for that. Now that my strength has recovered to its peak, my spiritual power has strengthened a lot after these days of closed-door cultivation. It's more than enough to take back this world. Seeing this, Du Fan and Leng Xuan looked at each other and smiled. It seems that it won't be long before we can go back. It's been almost a year since we came out. I think the two little masters have grown up a lot. Hearing them mention the two children, Fengjiu smiled and said, A few days ago, the two little guys used the communication jade card to send me a message. Let's deal with the news here as soon as possible and go back to give them a surprise. Yes, then we'll go and prepare first. The two bowed and then retreated. On this day, Fengjiu was not in a hurry to go out, but entered the space to cultivate again. Early the next morning, she flew up into the sky alone and leaped into the clouds. Standing among the clouds, looking down at the world below, she saw a vast expanse and everything became so small. She raised her eyes and looked ahead. Between the layers of clouds, white clouds floated, and in the distance, the morning sun was slowly shining through the clouds onto the ground. The morning breeze blew, and her red hair and red clothes fluttered in the wind. She stood with her back to the morning sun, and her hands formed an ancient and complicated seal. She softly chanted, and her spirit force and powerful mental force spread out from her body. In Infinite City, City Lord Jiang and the others were talking to Du Fan. Does that mean that the few of you are going to leave? Gu Cheng's City Lord asked. His face was filled with reluctance. That's right. It was an accident that we came here, but there was a pleasant surprise in the midst of the accident. Now that the matter is settled, it's about time for us to leave. Du Fan smiled and said slowly, Will you come again in the future? Will we have a chance to meet again and have a drink together? Ha ha, my master will be the master of this world. This world will no longer be without a master. In the future, even if my master is not in charge of this place, it will be under her command. Therefore, you don't have to worry about anything happening in the future. Even if something happens, we will solve it. As for whether we can meet again, it will depend on whether we are fated to meet again. Chapter 43:01. As he spoke, he waved his hand, and a few elixirs flew out and landed in their palms. This is a gift from my master to all of you. This elixir can help all of you enter the fairy realm steadily. After you become a fairy realm powerhouse, all of you have to do what you are doing now. You have to restrain the descendants of your clans and refrain from doing anything that harms the common people. Otherwise, when we meet again in the future, we will personally cripple all of your cultivations and banish your clans to the mortal world. Hearing this, the few of them were shocked. When they received the elixirs in their hands, their expressions became solemn. Yes, we will bear this in mind. After they finished speaking, they carefully put away the elixirs. It was also at this moment that they felt a rumbling sound coming from the sky. When they looked up, they saw that the clouds were tumbling. Layers of white clouds were surging like waves in the sea. The people below were amazed. What's happening now? What's wrong with the clouds in the sky? Are they going to turn back tonight?
Don't.
It wasn't easy for us to have the distinction between day and night. We don't want it to turn back now. It doesn't seem like it. Look at the clouds. Isn't there a red figure there? No, the aura in the air is changing. It's like there's something else. Everyone in this part of the world could feel the different changes in the world they were in. Some of the commoners and ordinary cultivators didn't quite understand what was going on. Some of the powerhouses from the clans and some of the stronger cultivators felt the fluctuations in the air. They could vaguely guess what was going to happen. Therefore, they didn't cry out in alarm. They just held their breaths and looked up quietly. As time passed, a loud rumbling sound came from the clouds. It was as if a powerful aura and pressure had enveloped the sky. A barrier that they couldn't see seemed to be quietly forming. Rumble.
Crack.
The sound of thunder rang out, and a flash of lightning flashed across the sky. In the next moment, drizzles fell from the sky like threads. The rainwater covered every corner of the world, nourishing the entire land. It's raining! It's raining! The people below were cheering as they watched the rain fall on their bodies. To the people in this part of the world, rain was extremely rare. The perennial heat had caused them to lack water. Now, the rain gradually became heavier. This lasted for 2 hours, and the people in this part of the world were cheering. The sound of thunder and lightning didn't stop. Until 2 hours later, the rain gradually became thinner and finally stopped. At this moment, the dark clouds in the sky seemed to be pushed aside by a pair of hands, revealing the dazzling, smiling face of the sun. A 7-colored rainbow even from one corner of the sky to the other, forming a huge arch bridge.
Ah.
Look, it's a rainbow. What a beautiful and big rainbow. There's a rainbow actually appeared. Chapter 43:02. Because of the distance, the people below could not see clearly whether the red figure in the sky was a man or a woman, nor could they see the person's appearance. They only knew that the red figure standing on the rainbow was very beautiful. Below in Infinite City, in the City Lord's mansion, Dufan smiled when he saw the scene in the sky. He cupped his hands to Lord Jiang and the others and said, "My master is calling us. We have to leave now. See you again." "See you again." They hurriedly returned the salute. "Let's go." Dufan looked at Leng Shuang, Yi Feifei, and Wang Yu.
Okay.
They responded and followed him into the sky. They kept flying until they reached the rainbow. Then they followed Fengjiu and walked to the other side of the rainbow. Their figures completely disappeared into the clouds half a month later in Azure Demon City. When Wang Yu came to the gate of Azure Demon City again, her heart could not help but soar. "I've been gone for so long. Finally, I'm back." Fengjiu looked at Azure Demon City and was a little surprised. He said, "Why is the gate closed in broad daylight? And no one is going in or out of the city." "Something is wrong," Dufan said, looking at the closed gate in front of him. At the same time, his divine senses penetrated the gate and scanned inside. Hearing what they said, Wang Yu suppressed her excitement and joy. She said with a straight face, "Yes. Normally, the city gates wouldn't be closed during the day. I'll go and have a look first." While speaking, she quickly stepped forward and wanted to open the gate, but found that it was closed from the inside. She banged on the gate and shouted, "Open the gate! Open the gate! Get out of the way!" Dufan stepped forward and patted Wang Yu on the shoulder. Wang Yu looked back at him and retreated to the side. Dufan turned his palm, and a stream of air formed in his palm and fiercely struck forward. With a loud bang, the thick gate collapsed with a rumble. However, when the scene beyond the city gate entered their eyes, their pupils involuntarily shrank. They saw that the ground was littered with corpses, including old people, women, children, and practitioners. Among them, some seemed to have been dead for a long time, and their bodies had rotted. Some seemed to have died not long ago, and their blood was still dripping between their fingers. As far as the eye could see, there were at least 200 corpses on the street, and the shops that used to be bustling with noise and excitement were now in tatters. There was no trace of the familiar aura of the past.
Who did this?
Wang Yu's eyes were bloodshot, and blue veins appeared on her fists. He did not expect to see corpses strewn all over the place when he returned less than a year after leaving this place. Even though the people who died were not his relatives, the sight of them being cruelly killed made the anger in his heart and the blood in his body clamor and boil. He wanted to find an outlet to vent his anger. Chapter 43:03. However, the man was seriously injured and lost too much blood. Even though Fengjiu held his breath for him, he just opened his mouth and swallowed his breath without saying a word. Seeing this, Before Fengjiu could speak, Wang Yu rushed forward. Her worried and anxious voice came from the wind. "I'll go back home and have a look." "Let's go," Fengjiu said and rushed forward. She also wanted to know what had happened here. However, when they walked forward, they saw Wang Yu, who was one step ahead of them, was blocked by the bounded domain. She was standing there anxiously waiting for Fengjiu and the others. When she saw them coming, she quickly stepped forward and said, "I don't know what happened here. The bounded domain is blocked. I can't get in." Fengjiu and the others looked over and saw that the area in front of them was protected by a bounded domain formed by a strong airflow, forming a transparent protective cover. Unlike here, there were not so many corpses in the bounded domain. Instead, they did not see a single person. No, there were people. A group of people was patrolling from not far away. Maybe they saw them and were coming this way. Inside the bounded domain, the middle-aged man who led the team saw Wang Yu and Fengjiu and the others. He was surprised and said, "Wang Yu, why are you here?" "Uncle Lin." Wang Yu could not hide her joy when she saw him. Then she asked, "Uncle Lin, what happened in the city? Why did so many people die?
How are you?
How are my family members? Are they all right?" Fengjiu glanced at the middle-aged man. He was the master of the family they met in the Cyan Demon Forest. He seemed to have heard from Du Fan that Wang Yu had been with them for a long time and had fallen in love with the daughter of the master of the Lin family. Therefore, the two of them had an oral marriage. "Let's not talk about it for now. You guys wait here. I'll call 2 more people over and work together to open a hole in this barrier for you guys to come in," he hurriedly said and turned around to leave. At this time, Du Fan's voice came from behind him. "Don't bother." As Du Fan spoke, he walked forward and waved his hand. A hole as wide as a person appeared in front of the barrier. He looked at Fengjiu and said, "Master, let's go in first." Fengjiu nodded his head and walked forward. At this time, he heard the Lin family head inside the enchantment exclaim, his face full of shock. "Quick! Coming quickly! Those people are here again." The few of them turned around and saw a group of demonic cultivators dressed in black robes walking quickly towards them. Their swords dragged across the ground, creating sparks from the friction. The demonic aura on their bodies was extremely heavy. As their aura surged, the black mist visible to the naked eye also surged around them. Demonic cultivator. Du Fan gestured for them to enter before turning to Fengjiu. "Master, I'll go meet them." Originally, there shouldn't be any demonic cultivators in this place. However, not only were there demonic cultivators, but they had also killed so many people in the city. Even if they hadn't encountered such a thing, they would still have to do something about it. Fengjiu stood in the enchantment and looked at the demonic cultivators. He frowned slightly and said, "The aura on these demonic cultivators is not right. Be careful." "Master, don't worry," Du Fan replied. Just as he was about to close the enchantment, he saw Yi Feifei come out and stand beside him. Chapter 4304. "Follow me," Du Fan said, waving his hand to close the bounded domain. At the same time, he opened the fan in his hand with a swish. Fengjiu retracted his gaze and looked at Family Head Lin, asking, "What's going on in the city?" Family Head Lin glanced at Fengjiu and remembered that Du Fan had called her Master just now. He said, "As you can see, these evil cultivators came out of nowhere. They killed everyone they saw more than a month ago and have been lurking in the city. There are so many of them that the aristocratic families in the city came up with a way to set up a bounded domain to stop them. Even so, they can't hold on for long. These evil cultivators came in a strange way. Some of them were even mercenaries we were familiar with, but somehow they all turned into evil cultivators. Moreover, they didn't seem to recognize us. They killed people as soon as they appeared. I don't know what's going on. All we can do is to protect our own areas and fight against them. However, there seems to be some extremely powerful evil cultivators among them. This morning, we received news that a family's bounded domain in the west of the city was broken. How about my family? Are they all right?" Wang Yu asked. "Not very well." Family head Lin shook his head and said, "Your grandfather was seriously injured in a fight with the evil cultivators and is still lying in bed. I don't know what happened to your father. He came out a few days ago, but I heard that he hid in his room and didn't come out. I don't know what's wrong with him. As for your family, in the face of such a disaster, there are no other troubles. After all, there are elders in the family suppressing them." Listening to his words, Wang Yu's heart sank. She said, "I'll go back and have a look." Then she quickly rushed out. Feng Jiu watched Wang Yu leave and then said, "The Azure Demon City is a big city with a lot of people. This kind of bounded domain can't protect many people, right? What's more, if they are all in the bounded domain, there will be problems with food shortage. Indeed, the current situation is to treat the symptoms but not the root cause," family head Lin said. Feng Jiu pondered for a while and said, "Tell them that I'm going to the Wang family."
All right.
Patriarch Lin responded and watched her leave with the black-clothed woman. Then, he looked outside the barrier and was stunned. Half of the dozen or so devil cultivators had been killed by the two of them, and the remaining few were also injured. Two of them wanted to escape, but unexpectedly, the woman pulled open the bow in her hand and shot out an arrow. The arrow pierced through the heart of the first person and shot towards the second person, killing two birds with one stone, one fatal strike. Thinking about how many people had died at the hands of these people during this period of time, and then seeing how the two people in front of him easily dealt with more than 10 devil cultivators, he only felt his heart tremble. Seeing that they had opened the barrier and walked in, he hurriedly went forward. "The two of you, your master has gone to the Wang family." He hurriedly followed the instructions of the woman in red. "Thank you." The two of them clasped their hands and bowed before walking towards the Wang clan. In front of him, Wang Yu ran quickly to the door. The guard guarding the door saw him and shouted in surprise, "Young master! Young master is back!" Chapter 4305. Wang Yu ran to her grandfather's yard. As soon as she entered the yard, she saw Lin Jilin before she saw her grandfather. "Jilin, why are you here? You're back?" Lin Jilin greeted her in surprise and held her arm with both hands. "How are you? How have you been these days?" Wang Yu held her hand and said, "I'm fine. I'm fine. As soon as I returned to the city, I saw something happened in the city. I met your father and knew that my grandfather and father's situation was not very good, so I came back to see them. A lot of things have happened in the city during this time. Now almost no one dares to walk around outside. I heard from my father that your grandfather was seriously injured. Thinking that you were not at home, I came to help take care of him," she said softly. Hearing this, Wang Yu was moved. "Thank you. Don't talk about it. Go in and see your grandfather first. I have to ask the kitchen to boil the medicine," she indicated. "Okay," Wang Yu said, and walked quickly into the room. On the other side, Feng Jiu came to the Wang family. Because he had lived in the Wang family before, he walked to the Wang family's old ancestors' yard. However, a figure quietly left in front of them. She raised her eyebrows and recognized that it was Wang Yu's father. However, his aura seems to be a little strange. Leng Shui also saw the figure in front of him and frowned slightly. Something is indeed not quite right. His aura is somewhat similar to that of those demonic cultivators, Feng Jiu said. When she saw the people in front of her looking back, she and Leng Shuang moved to the side. Could it be that he's cultivating demonic arts? Leng Shuang asked. Feng Jiu shook his head. It's not possible. Although the master of the Wang family is not bold, he is not the kind of person who practices evil magic. Moreover, his aura is a little strange. It doesn't seem like it. She pondered and felt that the aura of these people was a little strange, as if they had been contaminated by something. Leng Shuang said, previously, Master Lin said that he had shut himself in for many days. Now he probably heard that Wang Yu had returned home, so he ran out to see. You see, he is so secretive in his own home. There must be something wrong. Let's follow them and see, Feng Jie said, and then walked forward with Leng Shuang. Wang clan had quietly entered the courtyard. Seeing that his son, whom he hadn't seen for a long time, had returned safely. He finally relaxed. He looked at him and saw that everything was fine. He wanted to leave quietly, but he didn't expect that his son, who was talking to his father by the bed, would suddenly attack him with a shout. "Who is it?" Wang Yu thought that someone had sneaked in and wanted to do something bad to his grandfather, so he immediately attacked the place where he found the strange aura. Unexpectedly, when he rushed out, he saw that the man was his father. "Father!" Startled, he quickly retracted his hand. However, because of the force, he forcefully retracted his hand. His body swayed slightly before he managed to stabilize himself. "Father? Why are you like this?" Wang Yu also noticed that there was something wrong with his aura at a glance. He couldn't help but go forward, but he was stopped by him. "Don't come over." Wang Clan had hurriedly shouted and stepped back to prevent him from approaching. Chapter 4306. I also want to know what's wrong with the head of the Wang family. Fengjiu's soft voice came from behind. They looked in the direction of the voice and saw Fengjiu in red and Leng Shuang in black coming in. Miss Feng, you're still here?" The head of the Wang family took a step back, but when he thought of Fengjiu's identity, he couldn't help but be surprised. He knelt down with a plop. "Miss Feng, please save me. I don't want to be like them." "Just you wait. I'll ask you later," Fengjiu said, walking inside, and said to Wang Yu, "Take me to see your grandfather." "Okay." Wang Yu replied, glancing at her father, and then led Fengjiu in. The head of the Wang family, lying on the bed, was haggard. Listening to the sound outside, he was anxious. He wanted to get up, but he couldn't even sit up until he saw Fengjiu come in. "Ghost Doctor, it's really, really good to see you again." Fengjiu smiled and said, "But I didn't expect that when I saw you again, instead of your strength advancing, I would see such a haggard appearance." Leng Shuang moved a chair to the side of the bed. After Fengjiu sat down, she reached out to feel his pulse and said, "It seems that the evil cultivator who hurt you is not weak. It's not easy for you to hold on until now." While speaking, she withdrew her hand and gestured, "Help your grandfather sit up." "Okay." Wang Yu immediately stepped forward and helped her grandfather sit up. Fengjiu turned his palm, and a spiritual aura was transferred into his body, helping him repair the internal injuries. After a while, he withdrew his hand and took out a silver needle to pierce into the acupuncture point. After the blood clots in his body were dissolved, he gestured for him to lie down. "You should have taken the medicine to dissolve the blood clots now, right? Just drink according to the prescription. I don't need to prescribe too much. You'll be better after a few days of recuperation," Fengjiu said, and stood up. "Ghost Doctor, what's wrong with my son? Did something happen to him?" He was still worried about his son outside. He didn't know what had happened to him. Fengjiu smiled and said, "You're not fit to worry about anything now. Don't worry about other things. Just heal your injury first. He's fine, so I'll ask him some questions." Then she looked at Wang Yu and said, "Take good care of your grandfather." "Yes." When Wang Yu sent them out, her eyes naturally fell on her father. "Wang family head, let's find a place to talk," Fengjiu said as she walked out. 2. When they arrived at the main courtyard, Fengjiu looked at Patriarch Wang and asked, "Do you have any wounds on your body? Or did you touch something when you went out a few days ago?" Head of the Wang family was stunned. After a pause, he said, "I took a team to patrol a few days ago, and my hand was scratched by a devil cultivator." He took off his coat and pulled it down, revealing his black-purple arm. Looking at the arm, Fengjiu frowned slightly. "It turns out that the devil aura in your body is emitted from this. No wonder you're different from ordinary devil cultivators. But how could this be?" Chapter 4307. Hearing this, Wang Yu couldn't help but ask, "What should we do? Is there any way to cure it?" "Let's deal with it first," Fengjiu said, taking out a thin knife and medicine from the space. "The main problem is the virus in the wound. I have to study it to see what it is." Looking at the thin blade on the table, the fire was lit, and the water was prepared. The head of the Wang family asked, Dr. Gui, I can't feel my arm anymore. He was afraid that she couldn't cure his injury even if she used the knife now. Feng Jiu smiled and said, So, I don't need painkillers? After cleaning her hands, she burned the thin blade on the fire for a while and then helped him clean the swollen and black wound. At the same time, she said, Wang Yu, you clean your hands and squeeze the blood and pus out of your father's wound. Okay, Wang Yu answered. After cleaning her hands, she helped her. As soon as the knife went down, blood and pus came out. Wang Yu did as she said, squeezed the blood and pus out of the wound, and then cleaned the wound. Feng Jiu cleaned the thin blade and burned it with the fire. After Wang Yu wiped the wound clean, she removed the rotten and black flesh. At first, the head of the Wang family did not feel anything. Even when the knife was cutting his flesh, he did not feel the slightest bit of pain. It was not until later that his hand gradually began to feel, and cold sweat began to seep out. He looked back and saw that a large piece of flesh had been removed from his arm, revealing the bones in his arm. However, the bones were not the normal beige color. Instead, they seemed to have been corroded. There were scattered black spots on the bones. Feng Jiu helped him clean the wound, applied the medicine to stop the bleeding, and bandaged it. She said, As you can see, part of the bone is necrotic, and the virus has infiltrated into the bone marrow of the body. While speaking, she washed her hands in the water. Lung Shuang opened the window to let the wind blow away the smell of blood inside. Give this medicine to your father. Feng Jiu handed an elixir to Wang Yu and said, You guard him in case of any accident. The devil qi in his body is strange. If it breaks out, he will lose his mind. Also, don't be hurt by him. If you are scratched by him or your wounds are stained with his blood, you will also be infected. Feng Jiu instructed and glanced at the father and son. Also, before the problem is solved, it's best not to go out. Feng Jiu and Wang Yu left, leaving only the father and son there. Seeing her father's pale face and cold sweat from the pain of the wound, Wang Yu said, Father, let me take you back to rest. You don't have to worry about the family. I'll keep an eye on it. All right. The Wang clan had nodded and allowed him to lead him to the main courtyard. When Feng Jiu and Lung Shuang arrived at the garden, they saw Du Fan and Yi Feifei coming over, so they immediately stopped. Master. The two saluted and came to her. Let's go over there and have a seat. Feng Jiu motioned and walked towards the pavilion. Chapter 4308. On our way back, we asked around with the people in the city who had come into contact with devil cultivators. We found out that there are two groups of devil cultivators. One group is the original devil cultivators, and the other group was infected with devil qi later on. The former group rarely makes a move, and the ones slaughtering devil cultivators in the city are mostly those who have lost their minds. Listening to his words, Feng Jiu pondered and said, Wang Yu's father was injured after fighting with those people, and now the situation is not very optimistic. Moreover, the devil qi on his body is strange. I suspect that these evil cultivators may have some kind of virus. She looked up at Du Fan and said, Go and check it out. Don't alert the enemy. Figure out the matter first. In addition, don't let your skin be cut when fighting with those evil cultivators, or if there are wounds on your body, don't get infected with other unknown blood. This virus is extremely powerful, so you have to be careful. Okay, I know. I'll go now. Du Fan answered and turned to go out. Master, what should I do? Yi Feifei asked. Feng Jiu glanced at her and said, Go to the city and pay attention to whether there are any strange people. If there are people infected with the virus, control them as soon as possible. In addition, tell the family heads who are patrolling the city to pay attention. Yes. Yi Feifei answered and left first. Let's go. Let's go back. Feng Jiu stood up and motioned for Lung Shuang to follow him. He went to the courtyard to rest, ready to study the way to crack the virus. Yi Feifei went to the city to find family head Lin and told him what her master said. After that, she walked around the city to see if there were any people infected with the virus, as her master said. However, most of the people in the boundary were hiding, and only some patrolling people were walking around. She didn't see anything unusual. However, when she passed by a remote house, she faintly heard the sound of crying and begging for mercy. She was surprised and walked towards the house. In the alley, there were two cultivators guarding the door of a house. Inside the house, there were faint sounds of crying and begging for mercy, but the two cultivators seemed to be used to it. "What's going on inside?" Yi Feifei asked as he walked forward. When the two of them saw her, their eyes lit up. One of them even whistled and said frivolously, "Oh, where did this little girl come from? What happened? Are you looking for us?" Yi Feifei had been to many places with Fengjiu and had seen many people and faces. When these two people said that, she immediately raised her hand and slapped them.
Pa.
The force seemed very light, but it caused the two cultivators to fall to the ground. Half of their faces were swollen. The two cultivators covered their swollen faces and were about to curse when they felt that something was wrong. They looked at the woman and found that her aura was different from before. If she looked like a delicate little beauty before, then the aura and pressure of this woman were like a demon. Her eyes were murderous and her body was full of pressure, making people tremble in fear. Who are you?" Chapter 4309. Open the door. Yi Feifei coldly shouted. The two cultivators looked at each other, cold sweat dripping down their foreheads. They could only go forward and push the door open. They originally wanted to leave after pushing it open, but they didn't expect to be yelled at to go inside. The door of the room was pushed open, and the cries of despair from inside entered her ears. She walked forward and kicked the door open, only to see a cultivator pressing down on a young girl who was crying in despair. The girl's clothes were torn, revealing her snow-white skin. "Damn it!
Who let you in?"
The cultivator saw the two cultivators who were guarding the door come in and immediately cursed. However, when he saw Yi Feifei, his eyes were filled with amazement. "Where did you guys find this kind of trash? This little beauty is really not bad-looking." The cultivator stared at Yi Feifei with lustful eyes. After releasing the girl he was pressing down, he came forward to lift Yi Feifei's chin. Looking at the scene in the room, Yi Feifei's face was already as cold as ice. However, when she saw the cultivator in front of her recklessly moving forward to lift her chin, she immediately raised her leg and kicked him hard in the crotch. "Little May."
Hiss.
Before the cultivator could finish his words, his crotch was kicked hard. In an instant, he was in so much pain that he bent down and covered between his legs with his hands. His face turned from red to white, and he was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat. In the end, he couldn't even stand and slowly knelt down. "Pain. It hurts so much," the man gritted his teeth and said word by word. After he finished speaking, his eyes were filled with killing intent. "Catch this bitch for me. Catch her." The angry shout rang out, but the two cultivators lowered their heads in fear and shrank to the side, not daring to take half a step forward. "The city is facing a disaster, but you used this opportunity to be so reckless and disgusting. You really deserve to die." Yi Feifei coldly shouted and kicked out again, sending the cultivator flying into the corner of the wall. He spat out a mouthful of blood.
Pooh.
The man fell down, heavily injured, and couldn't get up for a long time. Yi Feifei walked forward and took a piece of clothing from the side and draped it over the young girl's body. "Don't be afraid. If anyone dares to treat you like this in the future, remember to stand up and say it loudly." She glanced at the cultivator hiding in the corner and said, "You can't deal with him, but there are plenty of people who can." The young girl had stopped crying the moment Yi Feifei came in. She was still in a state of shock as she looked at the scene in front of her. Only when she heard Yi Feifei's words did she regain her senses. Her voice was trembling with sobs as she replied, I understand.
Thank you."
"Where's your family? Why are you alone?" Yi Feifei asked. "They're dead. They were killed by demonic cultivators. I'm the only one left." The girl's eyes reddened as she lowered her head. Hearing this, she was silent for a moment before she said, Then live well, even live for them. With that said, he patted the young girl's shoulder and said to the two cultivators, "Take that person away." She didn't want to kill them directly. Instead, she wanted to hand them over to the people in charge of the city. She wanted them to kill the chicken to warn the monkey, so as to deter those who had evil intentions. Chapter 43:10. He did not alarm those people. Instead, he quietly walked around the city, looking for the figures of those demonic cultivators. When he saw a group of 20 to 30 demonic cultivators breaking through a clan's barrier and fighting with the clan's people, a woman was killed, and a child who had just learned how to walk fell among the corpses and cried. Seeing that the clan's people did not care about the child at all, a knife flew out from the hand of a demonic cultivator and shot towards the child. He immediately flew out, blocking the sharp knife with a fan in his hand, and at the same time, picked up the child. "Woo, woo woo, mother, mother." The child cried and reached out to pounce on the corpse of the woman on the ground. Seeing this, Du Fan sighed in his heart and handed the child to an old man at the side. "Take good care of this child." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed and he killed the devil cultivators in front of him one by one. With his strength, the strength of these devil cultivators was nothing in front of him. In less than half an incense stick's time, there were 20 to 30 devil cultivator corpses on the ground. The people of that clan looked at the scene in shock. The old man who was carrying the child was the first to come back to his senses and hurriedly stepped forward. "Thank you, young master, for saving us. My He family will never forget this in our lives. Please accept our respect." As the old man spoke, he knelt down with the child in his arms. When the others saw this, they hurriedly knelt down as well. Seeing this, Du Fan said, "All of you, get up." After gesturing for them to get up, he said, "Your barrier has been broken, and seeing that your clan has suffered heavy casualties, there are only these few people left. If you stay here any longer, it will be very difficult for you to survive. It's better to go to the barrier in front and stay there." The old man smiled bitterly. "Young master, it's not that we don't want to go, but we can't. Our He clan is just a small third-rate clan. There are very few experts in the clan, and the barrier is not strong enough to protect the people in the clan. The place where the Wang clan is located is where the large clans in the east of the city are located. We originally wanted to go there to take refuge, but even though it's also a city, the road from here to there is not close, not to mention those devil cultivator are eyeing us covetously. We really have no choice." Seeing this, Du Fan said, "I'll send you there." Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed. "Thank you, young master." "Thank you." Du Fan looked at the corpses on the ground and said, "There's no time to deal with these corpses. Moreover, these demonic cultivators are infected with a virus. If you're injured by them, I'm afraid that you'll be infected as well. Therefore, set these corpses on fire. You should also check your wounds. If you're injured by a sword, it's fine. However, if you're scratched by those demonic cultivators or if your wounds are stained with demonic cultivators' blood, you'll have to be treated in isolation." After saying this, Du Fan saw that their expressions had changed. He could not help but think that these people had just fought with the demonic cultivator. Other than their own blood, there was also the blood of the demonic cultivator. Furthermore, they already had wounds on their bodies. If that was the case, for a moment his brows furrowed. If that was the case, it would be troublesome. "Young master, dare I ask, what is that virus? Was it really that contagious? What will happen if you are infected?" the old man asked. Chapter 43:11. Hearing his words, everyone looked at each other. Those who were injured stood to the side, while those who were not injured stood to the side. They did not know what he wanted to do, so they all looked at him. Du Fan's gaze swept past them. He paused for a moment, then said, "I'm busy right now, so I can't do anything to you. I don't know if you've been infected, so before that, those who are injured can wait in this residence. I'll send those who are not injured to the barrier that those clans are guarding." Just as he finished speaking, he saw that someone was about to speak anxiously, so he raised his hand to stop them. "Don't be anxious, let me finish." The originally anxious crowd had no choice but to swallow their words when they saw him like this. They looked at him with hopeful eyes, hoping that he could point them out a way to survive. You know the situation in the city now. If I bring all of you back, I can't guarantee that those clans won't kill all of you who are injured or infected in the worst-case scenario. However, if those who are not injured go, I believe that there will be a place for them to stay. His gaze fell on those who were injured and said, "You don't have to worry. I'll personally set up a barrier around your clans. Those demonic cultivators won't be able to break through my barrier. My master is already researching the antidote. I believe that he'll be able to find a solution soon. Right now, this is the best arrangement for all of you." Hearing his words, everyone looked at each other. In the end, it was the old man who stepped forward and said, "All right, we'll listen to Master's arrangements." Thus, Dufan sent those who were injured back to their clans for treatment and bandaging their wounds. At the same time, he set up a barrier for them and gave them some instructions. Only then did he bring those who were not injured to where those clans were located. On the way, as everyone expected, they encountered two groups of demonic cultivators. Fortunately, Dufan was there, so they were safe. Otherwise, they would not have been able to make it here alive. "Master Lin, these are people from one of the clans in the city. Their barrier was broken, so I'll send them here to settle down. Please make the arrangements," Dufan said to Master Lin, who was patrolling inside the barrier. At the same time, he opened the barrier and let the people behind him in. Seeing this, the Lin family had said, "Young Master Du, don't worry. I will make arrangements for them." After Dufan helped them settle down, he turned around and left, heading towards the city. Patriarch Lin, something has happened." Not far behind, a cultivator hurried over. Patriarch Lin glanced at him and was startled. He hurriedly asked, "Steward Luo, what happened?" "Lin family head, that Miss Yi." The person came forward and whispered into his ear, quickly explaining the matter. Hearing his words, Patriarch Lin's face was as cold as ice. This is outrageous. He could not conceal the anger in his voice. He flicked his sleeves and was about to leave when he paused. He glanced at the people Dufan had brought with him, then beckoned for a middle-aged man to come over. "Bring them down and settle them down. Tell them about the current situation here. I have something to take care of. When I return, all of you must be vigilant. Don't let your guard down." As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately strode away with Steward Luo. Chapter 43:12. Isn't that the He clan's instructor? Why was he captured here? Did he commit some crime? Who is that lady beside him? He's the He clan's instructor. He's been patrolling this area with his men. I haven't interacted with him before, but I heard that he's very good at fighting. If he's good at fighting, why would he be tied up and kneeling there? It was this lady who captured him just now. Who knows what's going on? I saw the He clan's people running back to report just now. I reckon that the He clan's patriarch will be here soon. Although he's the He clan's instructor and not a member of the He clan's main family, capturing the He clan's instructor here and making him kneel there is a bit of a slap to the He clan's face. I reckon that the He clan's people won't let this go easily. Hearing those people's discussion, Yi Feifei didn't say anything. She just waiting for someone to deal with this matter. If it wasn't for the fact that she wanted to give a warning to those who wanted to take advantage of the chaos to do evil, she wouldn't have bothered to bring him here. She would have killed him in that alley long ago. "Lady Yi." Patriarch Lin hurried over with the steward. Seeing Yi Feifei standing there with a cold face, he said, "I already know about this matter. How do you want to deal with it?" Yi Feifei looked at him and said, "This person has evil intentions. Leaving him alive is also a disaster. Kill him in public to deter those who want to take advantage of the chaos to do evil." Hearing this, Patriarch Lin hesitated for a moment. Kill him in public? Isn't this a bit too much? Too much? Yi Feifei sneered. If the person he extended his hand to today was your daughter, would Patriarch Lin still feel that it's too much? Patriarch Lin's expression changed and said, "I know. Lady, you trust me. Leave it to me to deal with it." All right, I'll watch from the side, Yi Feifei said. She retreated to the side and watched as he walked forward and came to the side of those people. He raised his voice and said what the three people had done in public. She watched as the surrounding people's discussion turned into astonishment and anger. They actually did such a thing? They've really thrown the face of us cultivators. It's not too much to kill this kind of person. They're really too despicable. Taking advantage of the chaos to do evil. Even if this kind of person dies 100 times, it won't be a lot.
Kill him.
We must kill him. The surrounding people were furious, especially those who had daughters and younger sisters at home. Their faces were filled with anger, and they wished they could step forward and kick them. Some people's eyes flashed slightly, and they shrank back, trying to reduce their presence. What big mistake did my He family's instructor make? Why would Patriarch Lin have to personally kill him? A dignified voice sounded. The crowd naturally opened up a path. They saw a group of people following behind a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was wearing luxurious clothes. His steps were steady, his face was dignified, and his eyes were filled with pressure. He had the aura of someone who had been in a high position for a long time. It was easy for people to guess that this person was the patriarch of the He clan. Family head Lin looked at the person who came and cupped his hands. Family head He. Patriarch Lin. At the same time, he also returned the greeting. His eyes were like torches as they fell on the Lin family head. Then, he swept his gaze over to Yi Feifei, who was standing quietly at the side. There was a trace of coldness in his eyes. Yi Feifei treated him as if he was invisible and didn't pay attention to him. He just watched quietly and wanted to see how Patriarch Lin would deal with this matter. Chapter 43:13. Perhaps, Master He, you've made a mistake? Otherwise, based on Master He's family style and his thunderous methods, how could he allow his subordinates to take advantage of the chaos to bully a weak woman? Don't you think so, Master He? Master He, who had initially been furious, frowned when he heard this. His sharp gaze swept across the crowd and landed on the three kneeling cultivators. He saw that the three of them had lowered their heads and their bodies were trembling slightly. They did not even dare to raise their heads to look at him. Master, he clenched his fists tightly behind his back. Taking advantage of the chaos? Bullying a weak woman? Master, he inquired. That's right. If Master He doesn't believe me, you can ask him yourself. However, after this, I will definitely kill this person on the spot. This will also let everyone in the city know that the city is now facing a great disaster. If anyone dares to play such underhanded tricks in the dark, they will end up like this. The head of the Lin family said in a deep voice. His voice was calm at the beginning, but towards the end, his voice was filled with a fierce and murderous aura. It was very frightening, so much so that the surrounding people immediately became quiet. They stopped talking and just watched quietly. Master, 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 save me. I don't want to die, I don't want to die. The cultivator, who had been trembling with his head lowered, seemed to have awakened from his stupor. He threw himself at Master He's feet and kowtowed. I know I was wrong. Master, I know I was wrong. I deserve to die, but I don't want to die yet. Please save me. Master, spare my life. I'll kill the demonic cultivators. I'll kill the demonic cultivators.
Don't let me die like this.
However, Master He's face was cold. He stared at the man who was kowtowing and begging for mercy. He raised his hand and slapped the top of his head, killing him instantly. A loud bang was heard, followed by a blood-curdling scream. The surrounding people could not help but take a step back. They looked at Patriarch He in astonishment. They did not expect that he would kill Patriarch He without saying a word. Master Lin is right. There's no point in keeping people like this alive. If anyone dares to commit the same crime again and bully the weak, they will end up like this. His gaze swept across the crowd and finally stopped on Yi Feifei. However, he only glanced at her once before he turned around and left with his people. Seeing that Lin Fan had directly killed them, it saved them a lot of trouble. After the Lin family had looked at the corpse, He walked towards the two people who were paralyzed with fear and crippled their cultivation. Then he ordered people to take them away and clean up the corpses on the ground. Perhaps it was because this bloody scene was too shocking that everyone was unable to regain their senses for a long time. If this had happened in the past, they probably wouldn't have dealt with it so seriously. However, it just so happened that the situation was like this, and there was a woman of unknown origin watching over them. At this moment, some of the people who originally had evil intentions saw this scene, and all of them stopped thinking about it. They didn't have the guts to commit a crime in such a situation. Even if they wanted to do something, they had to wait until the current situation in the city was over before they dared to think about it again. Otherwise, once they were caught, they would probably end up in the same situation. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.